Welcome to Brothers of the Word, because, brother, you need the Word. And there is a movie called Harriet. The movie is basically a dramatized documentary. It's probably embellished somewhat, perhaps from the truth, but it is an embellished documentary of the story and the life of Harriet Tubman. Now, in the movie, and for those of you who have not seen it, there are going to be some spoilers in it, so if you haven't seen it, you're going to know a little bit about the plot. But in the movie, she's called Minty, and it opens up with her having seizures. Because what happened when Minty was a young girl, she got hit in the head. And when she got hit in the head, she began to have seizures. But when she had the seizures, she heard from God. You know, sometimes God has to slap us upside the head. I wish that he could whisper to all of us in just a gentle, soft voice. But parents, you do understand that sometimes you cannot talk to all of your children in a gentle, soft voice. There comes a point, now I know this is not politically correct, but there comes a point with your children where even talking doesn't work. And you have to do like my daddy used to do it. And my daddy would have been locked up so much now because, you know, you just cannot, you can't hit a child now because they claim that's just going to all. Let me tell you this, no discipline is far worse than a belt or a switch any day of the week. But yet you have to elevate sometimes a soft whisper, and you have to take that to a shout. And when they don't listen to a shout, you have to take that to another whole level. So Minty began hearing the voice of God after she was hit in the head, and she began to have these seizures. And as the movie progressed, she was married to a man named John, and Minty was still a slave owned by the slave master, but John was a free man. And John came to the master's porch, and he had a piece of paper, and he said, I've been to the lawyer and I've got a paper, and it's from the will of your mother, and in the will she wanted Minty to be free, and this is her freedom papers. And the master just took the papers and tore them up and said, she ain't going free, she ain't going to die a slave. And she became disheartened, and Minty went off and prayed, and as she prayed, she said, Lord, kill this man. Sometimes we're not too evolved. You're supposed to love everybody, but you know, there's some folk that just get under you, and they get on your, what Mom's Mabel used to call, she used to say, I ain't got but one nerve left, and you done got on that. Sometimes you don't have but one nerve left, and they done got on that. So Minty was perhaps not in the most Christ-like state of mind. After this master said she would never be free, she would die a slave, she went off and she prayed, Lord, kill this man. And the master's son heard Minty as she was praying, but the thing about it, his daddy died the next week. So when he saw that, he said, whoa, he didn't know whether it was coincidence or whether Minty had some power. So he said, I can't take any chances with this woman. Because I don't know whether this was just happenstance, but I saw her praying last week to kill my daddy, and my daddy laying up in the grave right now. So he set out to sell Minty, and Minty got wind of it. So she said, I got to run. And she went to her husband, John, said, look, I've got to run. They're going to sell me, and I've got to get out of here. John said, I'll go with you. He said, no, you can't come. And John said, I'll go with you. He said, no, you can't come. Because if they catch you and you're a free man, you will lose your freedom. And Minty didn't even see him anymore after that. She stole away in the night, And she ran. And the master, once he found out she was gone, they set up a manhunt for her, and they went to track her down, and they caught her on a bridge. And the master was on one end, and the other end of the posse was on the other end, and Minty was there in the middle of the bridge. She got up on the rail of the bridge, and the master was trying to tell her, said, come on, we won't hurt you. And she knew that wasn't true. So she was up on this railing of the bridge, and there was a river raging below. And she said, I will either be free or die. And she jumped into the river. And they looked for Minty, but they couldn't find her, so they assumed she had drowned and she was dead. But she didn't die. She made it out of the river. She made it over 100 miles, and she finally made it to a northern city where she made it to the Underground Railroad to freedom. And she stayed there, and they nursed her, and they taught her. And a year later, Minty says, after she got there, she changed her name. And she changed her name from Minty, and she took on the name of Harriet. See, when God changes your position, he will often change what you called. He may not change your legal name, but he will change what you are called, and he will often change what you call yourself. And you will stop calling yourself. Once God gets you free, you'll stop calling yourself some of this negative stuff. You'll stop calling yourself, I am broke. You stop calling yourself that. And see, when you start calling, that's why when you really evolve, you got to change what you are called. So when you get to that elevation, so she stopped Minty and she became Harriet Tubman. And after a year, she said, I got to go back and I got to get John. Because I'm up here, I'm free, but I'm all by myself. I got to go get John. And the people said, no, it's too dangerous for you to go back there. If you get back, you get caught, you can't come back, you'll be locked up, you'll be back on the plantation. You said, I got to go get John. So they gave her some false papers, and she set out. Went through some few roadblocks here and there, but she finally made it back, and John kind of worked in a blacksmith shop. And she walked into his job, and she saw John. Tears just running down. Oh, John. Oh, John, I miss you so much. Oh, John. Oh, my goodness. Oh. And she ran up, and she grabbed John, and she hung on to John, but she noticed John was a little cold. John didn't wrap his arm around her and profess his love. And when she stepped back, she said, so what's wrong, John? John said, I'm married. She said, what? John said, they told me you were dead. That you jumped off a bridge into the river and you were dead. So I've got another wife and we got a child on the way. And Minty said, John, how could you do that to me? And John looked at Minty and said, you left me. I tried to go with you. You left me. There's a whole sermon in that, but I'm not going there. So here Minty walks off into a field, and she's walking towards this tree, and tears are streaming down her face. And she's talking to God, and she says, God, why? Why did you let me come back? Why did you let me go through all this danger? Why did you let me come back to find out my husband was married to another woman with a child on the way? Why didn't you tell me this up front? I'm talking to you. Why didn't you tell me to go back? Why? Now, I knew the why because I knew the rest of the story. I knew the story of Harriet Tubman before the movie, so I understood why God let her come back. But you see, Harriet or Minty, in her moment of pain, in her moment of unclarity, looking through a glass darkly, not understanding why she had to go through all of this, Minty, Harriet, could not understand God's purpose or his plan. And I am beginning today a 4-part series that will last to the end of this season, simply called Purpose. And for so many, we don't know the purpose of why God has called us to do or to be what we're supposed to be. Back in the old days, before golf had become introduced in this country, the other brothers of the word are very avid golfers. C. Elijah and James both play golf extremely well. Well, one of Ulysses S. Grant, when he was president, one of his aides came to demonstrate the game of golf to President Grant. So the aide brought President Grant outside. He teed up the ball, and he took his club, and he went back and swung. Whoop! But he missed the ball and just dug up a whole lot of dirt, sprayed dirt all over President Grant, all in his beard. And so President Grant just stood there and looked and said, let me just show you. So he got in position again, took a swing back, wham! Missed the ball again. Dug up dirt, just spraying it all over the president. He swung 6 times and never hit the ball. So President Grant had never, he'd never known about the game of golf, and he looked at the aide and he said, this actually seems to be a pretty good sport. It looks like there's a very good amount of exercise with all of that swinging. But, he said, but what I don't understand is what's the purpose of the ball? See, he could not understand what the ball had to do with anything. He thought the whole game was just having to do with swinging and digging up dirt. See, if you don't know the purpose of something, it looks totally strange to you, and you don't know the purpose of the thing. So here in life, some of you go through some things, and you don't understand God's purpose for the thing. And sometimes we deal with stuff not understand. In Proverbs, there is a verse 14:12. There is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end it leads to death. It seems like it's right, it seems like it's good, but in the end it leads to death. Years ago, Frank Sinatra, he had a very popular song. Most of you have probably heard this song, either sung by Sinatra or someone else. And the words to the opening verse of the song goes like this: and now the end is near, and so I face that final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I've traveled each and every highway, and much more than this, I did it my way. There's your way, and there's God's way. And sometimes with God's purpose, his way is not our way. See, Minty was there for John, but that was not God's purpose for sending her back. And just on that first trip, she brought back 7 of her family members, because they were getting ready to sell her brothers because they had run into some economic hard times on the farm. So they were getting ready to sell the rest of her family. And Harriet Tubman began the Underground Railroad, where she eventually took hundreds of slaves to freedom with her own family. But she didn't get John. And see, some of you, you're looking for John. And God does not have it in his purpose for you to get John. There's a whole different purpose in your life, but you can't see it. Just like Ulysses S. Grant couldn't understand what's the purpose of the ball. You can't see some things until God reveals, and sometimes he won't reveal it at all. And you will not know his purpose. There's so many times I've gone through some things that I didn't understand. Yesterday, I had two situations. I was coming back from out of town, and I said, I'm going to stop and get me something to eat at a restaurant. And I was going to one restaurant, and God said, you go to this restaurant. So I don't want to go to that restaurant, I want to go to this. He said, you go to this restaurant. I've learned to be obedient. I'd rather have a meal where God tells me than a meal where I want to go, because God just knows some stuff way more than I do. I went in, the waitress sat me down. She sat me next to a family, and it was about 10 or 12 folk at the table. So I ate my meal. I'm getting ready to go, and I hear God speak, I want you to pay for their meal. I said, Lord, you know how many folk over there in that family? You can't count. I said, do you know how many folk over there in that family? But I've learned my purpose and my plans are not God's. So I looked over there to find the daddy. I found the daddy. I walked over to the daddy. I said, excuse me, sir, is this your family? He said, yes, it is. I said, would you be offended if you gave me the honor to pay for your meal? He said, I sure wouldn't be. He said, so So I paid for their meal. He had all of his children just come up to shake my hand and to thank me for it. And I could see why, even as a daddy, what he was doing and how he was training his children. And see, I understood the purpose of that clearly once I left the situation. Well, on my way home, we live on kind of a busy street that the subdivision is on, but the street is closed right now because they're doing some bridge repair. So it's been closed the last few months. So I get to the main street, get ready to make a left turn, but there's a traffic light there. So the traffic light's on red. Normally, I will run that light. And the reason I run the light, because the street is closed. So there's nobody traveling on the street. So what I would do is look to see if anybody coming that way, nobody. And if I'm the only person there, I just go and run the light. I really do. I go and turn left, run the light. So I'm just being honest. Y'all have done some stuff yourself, so don't be looking at me like I'm crazy. But I run the light. So I'm getting ready to run the light, and I hear God speak, do not run that light. So I'm sitting there at the light. I look and see, is it a police somewhere nearby? Is there a reason for me not to run the light? No police. No, I'm just, here it is, pitch dark. I'm sitting there, and the thing about it, I'm waiting on the light to turn green. It was 9:28 when I got to that light. 9:35, the light's still red. I said, Lord, this is the longest light I've ever seen in my life. A car pulls up behind me, and this car is going left to the subdivision. They wait about a minute, they pull on around me and go and run the light. I'm sitting here after 9 minutes. Now, I've never seen any light last this. After 9 minutes, I see the other light change from green to yellow to red. So I'm waiting on some, Lord, I don't know why in the world you got me sitting there. I've been sitting here 9 minutes, and finally this light has changed. So the light went from green to yellow to red. And my light's still on red. I said, is it just an arrow? I got to wait another few seconds? Then I looked at the other light, it switched back to green. I said, what in the world? I said, Lord, this light is broken. You got me sitting here at the light talking about don't run the light, and this light is broken. I sat there and waited another cycle. Green, yellow, red, red. Wow. Then it went back to green. I said, Lord, this is ridiculous. Sometimes I have to talk with the Lord. I said, why do you have me? Wouldn't answer me. Do not run that light. So I'm sitting there, to be honest about it, feeling rather stupid. And anyone who saw me sitting there after 15 minutes would say, that man is stupid. So sometimes, and this was last night. This is right after I get through seeing purpose in the restaurant. I'm sitting at the light that I can see no purpose in. So after at 20 minutes, I turned right, went down the street, turned around, and came back. And when I looked in the rearview mirror, the light was changed, but it still never changed to green. I said, Lord, I still don't understand why. Now, sometimes God, I said, Lord, I'm just not sure the whole purpose of that was just not for the amusement of the angels. Because I could just come to see a whole host of angels just around my car, just slapping the arm. And they could especially see it when they saw the light go from green to yellow to red. And I'm sitting there all expecting, and then the thing never changed. I could imagine they just sitting there just slap. I don't know what the purpose of that. Let me explain some things just in terms of the natural. Probably one of the most strategic games in the world is chess. A normal chess player thinks about 1 to 3 moves ahead. A pro chess player will think 4 to 7 moves ahead. A master will think 8 to 10 moves ahead, but a grandmaster will think from 11 to 20 moves ahead. And this is a grandmaster. There are not but 100 grandmasters on earth. And the longest chess game is 269 moves. God knows the end from the beginning. It makes chess look like an infant's game. I cannot discern and determine what God's purpose ultimately is in the stuff he has me to do. Sometimes I'll see it, other times it just makes no sense to me whatsoever. The only thing I can do is listen for his voice and do my best to obey. Sometimes years later it becomes clear. That's why God told me to do that. Or now I see why he told me not to do that, and I sure wish I hadn't done that. That has happened plenty of times. Oftentimes you will not know God's purpose. But what you do need to do is follow God's voice and follow his will. And when we do that, it changes some things. In the movie, The Blind Side, Sandra Bullock played a mother who adopted a young black boy. And as the husband was telling the story at a speech, the real life husband, because it was based on a true story. This couple adopted this black homeless boy, took him in, and he later became a great football player and played for the NFL. And as the husband, the real life husband, was talking at a benefit, he was telling the people that his wife saw the boy walking down the street. It was in November, it was cold, and he had on a t-shirt and short pants. And he said, my wife spoke 2 words that changed my whole family, that changed our lives, and changed his life. And those 2 words, as my wife and I drove past this young homeless black boy, those 2 words were, turn around. And with us, and we are not sure about purpose. We're not sure what we're supposed to do. We're not sure even why we're doing some things. But often I wasn't sure about that light. What I was sure about, God told me not to run it. I don't know why. I have no idea. I've been trying to scratch. What could have possibly been the reason for that? Sometimes God just wants to test to see if we're going to be obedient. But you know what I started doing after about 5 minutes? I pulled out my phone and I began to study. I said, if I got to sit here, I might as well do something productive with it, just stare at the light, because the more I stood at the light, the more irritated I got. Sometimes if you will take your eyes off of the thing that's irritating you, it calms you down. So I actually pulled out my phone and had some and I started I held it up so I could see the red glow, so if it did change, I would know it instantly. But I started studying. Because sometimes you're stuck in a situation and you can't get out of the situation. You're like Minty and you're locked down in some situations. And you got to learn not to focus on the situation. Focus on what you can do. Focus on what you do have. And I just started studying. I don't know what that was for, but I do know God told me not to run that light, and I did not violate it because I made a right turn, which was fully legal, and went down and turned around and came back. Turn around. And as we delve into the series simply dealing with purpose, for so many of us, we need to do a turnaround. And we're going to need to make some changes to get into God's purpose for our lives. But in order to make those changes, we're going to need to at least have some idea of what that purpose is. And I'm going to reveal that to you. God has a purpose for every single one of you, and it's a specific purpose, and it's outlined specifically in His Word. And you need to know what that is. And it's not what you think. So as I show you this in the coming series, you need to have your mind geared to where if you feel that you're not in your calling, if you're not following your divine purpose, then you need to be prepared to turn around. And you need to be prepared to turn around and to go where God tells you to go. I hope all of you can listen to the entire series simply called Purpose. If you're listening electronically, you'll be able to go to brothersoftheword.com and listen to the entire series absolutely free of charge. Thank you for joining us today at Brothers of the Word, because, brother, you need the Word.